listening to that with me, Douglas Herbert, our foreign affairs commentator. And Doug, look, speak to us a little bit about what you thought of his speech, because obviously this is a profoundly grim moment for the Palestinians, but there was some substance in what he had to say there.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because look, Mahmoud Abbas, he's an 88-year-old, wildly unpopular leader. He's really been on the sidelines, for years of the Palestinian governance. But he's been on the sidelines more than ever, really, since October 7, 2023, and the day of the ferocious Hamas assault on Israel. He barely has control, very limited control in the West Bank, none at all in Gaza, where Hamas is the sort of accepted leader authority by the residents there. So what is, I guess, strikes me the most is that he steps to the podium. You think, who's listening to him? Who hears his voice? Who is he speaking for? And he struck me as quite vigorous, actually.
Yeah.
He struck me as in fine metal. We hear a lot these days from all corners, Israeli officials, Arab officials, almost anyone you ask, anyone you speak to. This is a man who, by the reckonings, is on his last legs, sort of. He's very corrupt. He barely leaves his residence. He doesn't travel far and wide throughout his realm. He sits like an aging emperor on his throne with only the authority bestowed on him by the fact that the U.S. and some of its allies continue to officially recognize him as the titular head of the Palestinian Authority, and by extension, the representative of the Palestinian people, although most Palestinians wouldn't make that connect the dot extension. So like I said, it was a vigorous speech where, there was nothing tremendously new about it. If you listen to his speech last year, 2023, many of the same denunciations of the obstructionism, as he sees it, by the U.S., obstructing, this year he's talking about, obviously, ceasefires in what's been a horrific war, but also denouncing Israel, the lies of the Israeli prime minister, as he calls them, calling for full membership of his organization, obviously in the United Nations, and begging, pleading for that that Palestinian state coexisting side by side with an Israeli state. But like I said, and we caption this throughout his speech, his words being "stop this crime, stop it now, stop the genocide, stop sending weapons to Israel." This has been the refrain throughout the world. From the pro-Palestinian protests that we saw on campuses, on the streets of those who were supporting Palestine, basically calling it a genocide, calling for powers such as the U.S. and its allies to stop supporting this war as they see it by supplying weapons to Israel. So you did have, if you knew nothing about Mahmoud Abbas, if you had not been following the dynamics of this conflict and the leadership and the split within the Palestinians themselves between Gaza and Hamas and the Palestinian Authority based in the West Bank, if you knew nothing of any of that, you'd say, wow, this is, yes, an aging leader, but a leader who very much seems very lucid and in command of his message, whether you agree with it or not.
And this might be a technical point, Doug, but it is worth spelling out in what capacity Mahmoud Abbas was speaking.
Yes.
At the UN General Assembly today. He is the president of the State of Palestine. That's
Right.
how he's referred to at the UN level. What does that mean?
Well, what it doesn't mean is that the State of Palestine is not recognized as a state member of the United Nations, and that is a big distinction. What he is allowed to do is he is allowed to sit among the assembly members, the 193-member General Assembly. And in the past decade, he has enjoyed, because his status was upgraded, he used to be an entity. Before 2012, the State of Palestine, as it's called at the UN now, was simply referred to as an entity. That was upgraded to an observer state, and then a non-member observer state. He can't vote at the United Nations, but the fact he's able to sit among the full-fledged members of that assembly, the fact he is able to take to the podium and have as much time as all of those members, have that prominent global stage from which to pitch his message to the world, that is something that he can boast about to his people. And that, you could argue, it is exactly these types of appearances, even if it's an annual one before the UN General Assembly, that gives him the little vestiges, the shreds of authority that he might have left, even if he's a very diminished figure among the Palestinian people themselves. I think last year a survey showed that 78% of Palestinians want Abbas to resign, to step down from his job. And there are those who say that if he were to step foot in Gaza, which is obviously separated, physically, geographically separated from West Bank, where he actually resides and governs in a limited way. If he were to actually step foot in there, he wouldn't survive. He is a loathed, reviled, hated figure there. Hamas is the recognized governing authority in Gaza, and that's been the case since Abbas and the Palestinian Authority were violently ousted from the Gaza Strip in 2007. So I would say today, being a non-member observer state, Abbas obviously would love that full membership, but I don't think he's complaining with the visibility in the forum that he was given today and that he has been given in recent years as a non-member observer state.